Hi, everybody, and welcome to another week, another edition of the Metro Sports Showcase. I'm Steve Kaplowitz, and joining me as you're not Wayne. Well, boy, you look a little pale. What happened, Wayne?
Well, hopefully Wayne's going to be here for the second half when I do it with him.
There you go. Joe Fan with me, and getting things started. We've got a great show, great guest, and you're going to have a lot of fun. Glory Road is going to be here soon. We had opportunities, and I know with the premiere, but before we get to our guest, I got to ask about the biggest news of the week, which no doubt is going to be talked about for a while here in El Paso. Jason Williams today, and again, we taped this show Monday afternoon. Today has been reinstated from the actually by Doc Sadler, and will now not only practice with the minors but also play against New Mexico State on Saturday. And Joe, just your immediate reaction upon hearing that news?
Well, I think it's the coach's decision. The only thing that I think I have a problem with is I think that the decision should have been announced before they played their first game on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Because now, having lost to Louisiana Lafayette, it just doesn't look good that you lose and then he's reinstated. I think if he was going to do it, I think the decision should have been made ahead of time. But again, Joe Fan is just Joe Fan's opinion. Doc
Sadler said today at the press conference that this was a decision made in the best interest of the team by him. And he consulted with school officials, but ultimately he made this decision. The players did not make this call. This was a Doc decision, and said today that it had nothing to do with winning or losing. Still, though, as you mentioned, good point, because of the loss to Louisiana Lafayette, which Doc said today had made no difference on his decision. If they would have won, they would have reinstated them. Lost, it wouldn't have mattered. But you're right. Why not make that call before the game, after the game, or a day leading up to it, as opposed to the day after? Because now people are going to speculate and say, boy, you lose one game and look what happens. Now here's Jason Williams back.
Yeah, that's my opinion, but like I said, that's only Joe Fan's opinion.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, let's get to our guest right now. And I mean, he might have an opinion or two because he's a longtime UTEP fan, a student at Texas Western. And when you talk about the 1966 team, the first thing, Joe, people always say is, if you want to get not only the memorabilia, but the story, talk to people that lived it. Joe Gomez not only lived it, but has been so instrumental in reunions and this project. We're very happy to have you here as a guest, Joe.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and be able to talk about one of my favorite subjects.
Without a doubt. Now, before we get to the 66 team, I'll give you a chance to chime in on this Jason Williams debate, because you go to a lot of games, you're very close with the program, have been for a long time. Your thoughts on everything that's developed?
Doc is the coach. He gets paid for coaching, recruiting, being a mentor, being a father figure, being everything. So whatever decision he makes, I'm with 100%.
All right, simple as that. Now, Glory Road is just about, I would say, a month away almost. I mean, it's January 13th it opens up. We've already had an opportunity in El Paso to have the pre-premiere here, 3 showings. Some people have already seen all 3 showings, but for you, especially being in that showing with the 1966 team at that afternoon show, talk about what it meant to you and just the movie in general.
Well, I felt very honored. I actually saw it twice. I also saw the evening session, and I felt honored that the Togo Rayleigh and his wife, and as well as Jerry Armstrong and his wife, felt very strongly that I should be there, and so they made the phone calls in order to give me that honor to be able to participate with them. I think everyone will like the movie. I think we're all restricted as far as reviewing it or anything else, but I think it sends some powerful messages. I think the actors did a good job, and I think not just in El Paso, it'll be enjoyed.
I think so too. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to ask you, because you had a part in it that unfortunately got on the floor, but maybe hopefully it'll be on the DVD version. Talk about your part that you had in the play.
Well, I think Ray Sanchez yesterday pretty well described it even better than I, but it was really a bar scene watching the game, and Herman Carr's there. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that Ray, of course, made it, and I did it for the experience and to help out, but it was kind of exciting. It was, several hours of shooting for a 30-second cameo.
Talk about the first reunion of the 66 team, because over the years we've seen many. They've come back numerous times. But tell me what made you decide this was something you wanted to do and bring the 66 team back the first time around?
Well, as you mentioned, I went to school with these guys, And I was, obviously I was very close with Bobby Joe Hill. I worked at Farrah with Dick Myers for a while. And Dick Myers was always the brunt of jokes in terms of, you won a 1966 championship, but you don't even have a ring. And in fact, to this day, Dick Myers, I believe, is the only player that still has the original NCAA watch that was given to him. So several times I discussed it with Bobby Joe Hill and what he thought about it, if we got somebody to donate the rings. And finally he said, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. So the fall of 1985, I started the plan, a 20-year reunion. And once we did it, all the players liked it. It was kind of difficult to get it through some old athletic administrations at UTEP. We're very lucky that the administrations that we've had athletic-wise, like Brad Hovius, and of course since Dr. Natalicia has been there, she's been all for all of these reunions. So she was very instrumental in the 25th, the 30th, the 35th, and now the 40th. So it was tough to get it done, but we got it done because it was a little late in coming.
But you picked a time in that 1985-86 season where UTEP basketball was at its peak. If you look at the run that the Miners had from about 1983 to 1992, that right there was when Miner basketball really was as popular as ever, and I think the fans embraced them. And if you're a member of the 66 team and you come back home and see that kind of a reaction, it just had to give those guys just an unbelievable feeling.
Well, if I can tell you, the amazing thing about that reunion, and yes, there was a lot of spirit and a lot of stuff going on because we were playing so well. But one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know about that reunion is the fact that once the athletic administration at that time allowed me to go ahead and do this, and it was only two people. There were three people: Henry Silverman, John Silverman, and myself. And of course, John and Henry donated the rings. Mm-hmm. But they gave us a 4-minute time period to give out the rings at halftime. That was going to be 19 rings, okay? Later on, they decided to increase it to 8. So Eddie Mullins and I worked out a script at halftime for 8 minutes. Surprisingly enough to me, just before the game even started, Frank Arnold, who was coaching Hawaii at the time, Hawaii was last in the WAC conference, saw me in the tunnel and told me, he said, you know, Coach Haskins told me what you guys are doing, and he said, here's what I want you to do. Take all the time that you want to present the rings to these guys who've never been recognized in this way, and just put 4 minutes back on the clock. We took 45 minutes. So you know that there was a lot of people in that athletic department at the time, and I'm not trying to knock them, but you cannot pass up an opportunity like this to really showcase history, and they tried to. And again, I'm not trying to be controversial in any way, but I think the truth needs to be known.
It's a great story.
That we took 45 minutes at halftime to be able to do this. You couldn't have done it in 8 minutes.
Yeah, there was no way. I remember that because I was covering sports back then. And I remember, I didn't know exactly how long it took, but I remember it took a long time. But the crowd that was in attendance needed that time to have enough time to recognize every individual on that team that was being honored.
And as you recall, I mean, even Coach Haskins came out of the locker room to greet the players one by one and get his ring. So it was extremely emotional for a lot of people. I think I looked around, and I don't know if I've ever seen that many people crying in the stands. And so it was a great experience for me, but again, it could have never have happened if it hadn't been for Henry Silverman and John Silverman.
Now, is that the first time that they had all been back since the 66 team as a team? Because I recall that there was once a game in which they had played about 10 years earlier. Yeah. Had played a basketball game, an exhibition game, and I didn't know if that included the entire 66 team or just some members from.
I don't know how many of the members came for that 76. I wasn't in 1976. I wasn't involved in it, but they did have some kind of a charity type event, but. Nothing like when we did the 20th.
Well, let's show the ring first off, because I know people are going to want to, get a chance to see this. And again, you mentioned, from Silverman Jewelers having opportunity to really, and it's amazing. You would think that they would have presented rings back in the 60s, but I guess that might have been something that wasn't as common.
Well, I don't think it was common here.
Yeah.
But other schools did it. And I just always felt like it was something that they needed to have as as kind of a keepsake.
That's great. Absolutely great. And as you mentioned, you also have a watch
Yeah,
as
I
well.
always see that as well.
Well, for the 25th reunion, in fact, Brad Hovius was the athletic director at the time, and of course, Dr. Natalisha was already there, so they wanted to come up with something else other than a ring. So we came up with a watch. This is what we gave each of the players.
Okay. And
for the 25th.
There you go. So it has the old Miner logo back at that time period, and it says, I believe, Texas Western, right around it.
It's got national champions in TWC, and what we wanted to do to really make it part of that administration or that time period, we used the pay dirt Pete that was being used at the time, not an old one.
Although right now, if you go to the bookstore, and I had a chance to see this a few months back, there is a great line of clothing out. Matter of fact, speaking of clothing, we're wearing a line right now. We've got the 66 line, which is actually endorsed by Don Haskins.
And it's signed by Don
Haskins. This is facsimile signature right there. And it's
right there.
It's at the bookstore, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I noticed that they actually have shirts, sweatshirts, with the original Pay Dirt Pete or the logo from that 66 team that apparently was the mascot that was being used at that time of their national champion. I've seen that also, which is great.
At that time, there was a couple of logos that were used, but that one was the one that you see at the bookstore with the T-shirt was one that was being used on anything that had to do with the bookstore as far as apparel or stickers or anything else. The athletic department also had another one, which I'll show you later in the show.
But, we showed this earlier. The prospector, we're the greatest headline. Now, Joe, did you save that prospector or did you come upon it later on?
I've had that since I was a freshman in college at Texas Western College.
Wow.
And I had it for several years. I had it in a binder, and probably about 25 years ago, I framed it. It's actually framed back to back. It's two separate sections, so that you can see the back. The back section is all photographs, and the other section is more articles and that kind of features.
And you brought your book with you, and of course the one cover that everybody I think is familiar with is the Sports Illustrated cover, which I'll hold up.
Yep. This is a hard issue to find, especially nowadays,
glare out. There we go.
because I think what's happened is that over the years, Joe, many people around the country have sold theirs to El Pasoans, because it seems like El Paso, when this got to be popular during a lot of the reunions, wanted to have that keepsake because it was really the only thing like that. The Sporting News issue featuring Texas Western, I believe, was a portion of the front cover, but that was the only issue that was actually devoted entirely in color to the national championship.
Sure. If I may, Joe, what you're getting ready to show there, that is the original media guide for that year, 65, 66. It cost $1.
Yeah, I see that.
That one happens to be, of course, I don't want to take it out because I've been preserving it, but it has everybody's signatures in it, including the secretaries.
And
Now
you
here's
also
a
have-
ticket.
Yeah, that's
This
pretty
is
interesting too. Now,
let me see if I can.
and I'm
put
only
this
wondering,
one
is that piece of paper behind the ticket, was that the actual media release from the championship game?
Exactly.
There you go.
That's what
Section Q, row 5, seat 1. I guess.
Those are
Eddie-
good seats, by the way, Joe.
Eddie Mullins. Eddie Mullins put out that media guide, and it was at the press table at Coldfield House in Maryland.
Let me do this, too. If we can, let's zero in and show what the mascot looked like back then, because, again, as you mentioned, there's different variations of the mascot, and this was, I think, a simple-looking mascot because it was only orange with the script, but it's incredible to see how this mascot has evolved over the last 40 years, Joe.
Yeah, I'm looking for, Eddie Mullins, when he used to write the media stuff, he always used to have some great material and aneurysms, all kinds of stuff that he would have in this thing, which, well, here's what it says, which saw the Cinderella Texas Weathers and Miners knock off Adolph Rupp. So I'm trying to find something that's...
Well, that portion back there wasn't Eddie. That particular piece I got, believe it or not, on eBay.
Did you really?
Yeah, from
That's
a
amazing.
guy in California.
Well, it's a great that's a great piece of memorabilia, and I think as Joe continues to look through the scrapbook, you have spent now, I'm sure, probably 30-something years trying to collect as much keepsake and as much memorabilia from this season and from this game?
Well, actually, you know, having been a history major and a student of history, and I think history is very important for a lot of reasons. It just so happened that because of my interest in history, you know, I saved that from the prospector from the time I was in college, and I've accumulated a lot and gotten a lot of stuff over the years. Like I said, the only thing that I've ever bought on eBay is that one program. You know, we have to. This is one of those turning points in history that you would have never known. I mean, I would have never known about it when I started collecting. I mean, I knew what the significance was at the time, but it's always driven me to collect as much stuff as possible because for a long time it just seemed like it happened, it was over with, forget it, move on. But you can't just move on when there's a historical event that's taken place.
Now, UTEP is talking about putting something up in the concourse where some of the money was raised for the people that did see it ahead of time. What do you know about what their plans are?
The only thing I know, Joe, is that I know for several years now, Dr. Natalicio has wanted to do a permanent exhibit in the concourse area, and what it's going to involve or what's going to be in it, we don't know. I was on an original committee, and I hope I get selected to be on the committee when it's finally decided. But we wanted to have some interactive stuff in there. So whether it's the Bobby Joe, you know, stealing the ball twice and, you know, it keeps running on a DVD type of thing, or it's got to be something a lot more than just stuff enclosed in glass. It's got to be something special. I envision myself, you know, in the background, the bear that Coach Haskins got for his 25th anniversary at UTEP. It's somewhere on the campus.
Really?
So I envision that bear being possibly in the background and then having all these other things around it. But again, this is just one guy's ideas.
No, I think that's great. Now, with all the memorabilia that you've collected, and I wish we could have taped this segment from your house because there's the ultimate showroom, and I'm sure you have a lot more there that you weren't able to bring with you. Do you have jerseys and warm-up suits as well from that?
I only have a warm-up top. I don't have jerseys or anything like that.
Those are hard to find, though, because I know that back in those days, a lot of the players didn't keep it, and the university's policy was, well, after a while, they're just gonna throw it away.
I think a lot of the historical stuff that I have, you know, photographs, Sports Illustrated magazine for that entire month of in March 1966, not just the championship one, because on March the 7th, there was an article on Adolph Rupp. The week before the championship, there was an article by Frank DeFord. So all of those things tie in to things that were being said about Texas Western. Have a lot of newspaper articles from several parts of the United States, not just from El Paso. And it's been my passion because I think it was something that I lived. It was part of my youth, and I always felt like we needed to really bring it to the forefront. And I'm just glad that it's being done in a movie and so much publicity and all of that stuff.
You were also able to acquire the coaches' scouting tapes from that tournament, and I know that many of the players, pretty much every player, didn't have any copies of any of their games because it wasn't common back then to make recordings and have keepsakes, and you were able to present a tape of each game in that tournament that you acquired from the coaches' scouting tapes to a player. And what's funny, Joe, is that there are no televised records or radio copies of any game from that season, including the championship. And I think that if there's one thing that not angers but disappoints me more than anything, it's that nobody saved any copies of any of those televised games, including the championship.
Well, I was speaking with Roberto earlier, you know, who tapes a lot of the UTEP games now. It is a shame. Again, you know, there was no sense of history. Today, we don't only do it for a sense of history, but for a sense of news. Because what's newsworthy in any basketball game, I don't care from where across the country, a guy can make a, you know, across the court shot. So that's newsworthy.
Yeah.
And so everything gets taped now. But back then, the only thing that existed was scouting tapes, and they were generally filmed from above, no ground level, so you can't really get the feel of what the games were like.
And, you know, let me update you. Judd Melton, of course, did the play-by-play back then for the UTEP Miners. And when Judd retired, I did an interview with Judd, and Judd told me that he lost his bag going back on the plane from Maryland back to El Paso, and in that bag had everything, the scorebook, the everything possible that he had accumulated that full year of that championship season. It was gone and lost forever.
Oh, wow. So then there went probably all the copies of all the tapes as well from that whole season?
And back then, it was very uncommon for them to tape anything.
Yeah.
Back in '66.
Sure.
So therefore, I remember one time when I was working at KTSM having to go down into this basement area, and I had to look for something, and I was just looking for stuff, hoping that maybe I'd come across something that was saved, but they never did find anything on those broadcasts.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a shame that it was a part of history, and nobody decided to keep anything on as far as tapes or.
I understand that the Kentucky radio broadcast from their network, from that '66 game, exists, and I don't know if somebody in El Paso has it, but I've seen it. You talked about eBay. That was on eBay a while back, a couple months ago, and if we can't eventually get that audio copy and match it up with the scouting tape, then maybe one of these days we could still get John Teicher and Don Haskins to sit down and offer up their own commentary while they're watching the game, which I think would be tremendous for a lot of Miner fans.
Boy, it'd be great if we could track down who has that Kentucky radio broadcast, because we could also find out what exactly they were thinking and what exactly they were saying that we couldn't hear while we were watching it here in black and white. It'd be very interesting to hear that.
Well, you know, the main thing that comes down to everything is the fact that the movie is finally being told after all these years. And what were your thoughts on some of the actors, Josh Lucas, for example, on him playing the band?
I want to talk about Derek Luke first.
Okay.
Derek Luke, I met him at the reception, and admittedly, he had some actors that, you know, did the steals portion of the game and so on and so forth. But I was very impressed with him personally, because he really, like Josh took to heart playing Coach Haskins, Derek Luke really took to heart. In fact, you know, they were kind of saying that they walked into the gym for the Wheaties unveiling and even for the reception, and they felt like they had won the national championship. I thought Josh Lucas did a great job. I thought there was certain specific areas of the movie where I really, from what I remember, Coach Haskins on the sidelines, that he really did do a good job of portraying Coach Haskins.
You know, Derek Luke playing Bobby Joe Hill even had as much a tougher time with Friday Night Lights, playing Boobie Miles in Friday Night Lights. So he is really, as an actor, had two tough characters to play.
Sure.
But luckily for Derek, as he mentioned, he had a chance to talk with Tina and Michelle, and really getting their family and understanding Bobby Joe and the kind of person he was, and really for many of us, we still consider him, you know, Bob is I think something that really helped bring home that character. The funny part is, guys, again, we can't give away the movie, we can't review it, but I will say that there's a lot of Hollywood in there. And I think that's to be expected. And I said this, you know, a while back, that people in El Paso shouldn't be disappointed if the movie isn't a documentary, because that's not the purpose. The purpose is to tell a story, and when you get the people involved, like we've seen involved with Disney, Jerry Bruckheimer, there is going to be some Hollywood to it, because they want to try to make this as much of a feel-good story as they can.
Well, aside from a feel-good story, and I think Jerry Bruckheimer said it all, and you just said it, that it's not a documentary. Aside from a feel-good story, the powerful message, again, we go back to history. How do we get to where we're at today, okay? You know, when Kentucky, under Tubby Smith, won the national championship, he had 5 black players, okay? So how do we evolve to that? So the message is very, very powerful. There's just a lot to be learned from that movie, even if we're 2 years old when we won the championship, and you're now 42 years old. There's a lot that we learn from history. There's a lot we learn about relationships. And if I might add something, you know, it's like Jackie Robinson signing with the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah.
when it was accepted, and I'm getting to where there's incremental things that happen in history, it was truly accepted for him to be on that team when there was a photograph taken with Pee Wee Reeves with his arm around him. Then it was no longer an issue, okay? And look where we're at today, okay? So I just think that you got to add some Hollywood, you got to add some drama, you got to sell tickets, and but I think it's a great movie.
But I looked at the lineups from the '66 tournament, and I looked specifically at starters and who played, and he used the exact same rotation of players against Kansas earlier on in the tournament, and then against Utah. Jerry Armstrong had a chance to play because he had shut down Chambers, who was a great scorer at that time, and that was the big thing. And you look at this game itself, and people talk about, the 7 black players in this contest and how the 5 of them were starters. The same lineup happened 2 games earlier. So I think that it's important that when Coach Haskins has said for years that he was just starting his best players, if you look back at the earlier games in the tournament in that season, you'll see that this lineup was very similar to the lineups he had used prior to. The rest of the national media hadn't caught on to this fact, however.
It's like he's always said that he played his best players. I went to several games at home where I saw that lineup. The only thing that was different, and it was his strategy, and it's the way he coached, and is as good a coach as he is that he added another guard because of their speed. So Willie Worsley ended up starting that game. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing else but playing the best players, and I believe him. And as many games as I went to, I believe that when they announced the lineup.
It's got to be exciting for you with all you've done with the '66 team and as close as you've been able to get to these guys to realize that in just a month, the rest of the country will know this story better than they ever had before. And people all over the United States, when you say the Texas Western '66 championship, if they haven't watched the documentaries and seen it, will all know it now from the movies.
Well, I think that Disney, from what I can see, is doing a great job of promoting this movie. And that tells me that they believe in it. Beyond the dollars and cents of an expense to produce a movie, that tells me that they really have a heartfelt belief about the story of the '66 team. And again, I'm thrilled that I had some small part in the reunions and in the cutting room floor.
You could be on the DVD. You could be part of the bonus features because you know that in these movies, over an hour and a half of deleted scenes. And there you're going to pop it in. When it comes out, you're going to see yourself and you're going to be like, I'm on the DVD. That's all that matters, Joe.
Good. That'd be nice. That would be nice.
Well, we appreciate you coming and bringing all this material with you, and of course the great shirts as well.
Well,
John Haskins.
thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate that you guys want to be torchbearers and keep this going.
Definitely.
Because at some point, somebody else has got to pick up the ball and keep this thing going for another 50, 60 years, because it is an important part of history.
It's great. Summed it up great. And again, these shirts that we're wearing right now, Joe's shirt and our shirt.
66 line.
Yeah, it's available at the UTEP bookstore, but you can also get it online if you like to order on the internet. 66line.com has these as well. And they've got a full line, including the ultimate gift, which would be the Don Haskins clip-on ties.
There you go.
How great would that be? Everybody could be showing up one day with Haskins clip-ons. That'd be great.
There you go. Well, Steve, it was great.
Thank you, Joe. Good seeing you, and you're going to be back with Wayne in just a little bit. I know that's coming up.
Right.
So stay with us, folks. More in a moment right here on the Metro Sports Showcase.